And you know, the Sufi tradition and the Islamic tradition is very strong on this principle of transmission. The idea of transmission of knowledge. You know, I went once to Morocco with another man. He was a son of a famous psychiatrist in London, and we went to visit someone in Morocco who was most renowned as what they call jinn chasers. Did anybody know that? Do we have any Moroccans here? Jinn chasers are the people who exorcise jinn from people. They call them jinn chasers. And there was a man whose name was Mulli Muhammad who was, he lived in the wall of Fez. His family had been there for almost 1,000 years. And he was the most renowned jinn chaser in Morocco. And so this man was, you know, he was a psychologist. I was, you know, I wanted to learn about medicine. And so he and I together went to seek out Mulli Muhammad. We wanted to get from him to see if he could teach us about chasing jinn and get the idhan. Anybody know this term, idhan?
Haunted.
Idhan?
Jinn shaking haunted.
Idhan. Idhan is, do you all know this term, idhan? Like in English it would be I-D-H-N. It's the same root as adhan. You know, the adhan is permission. When the adhan is called, it's actually permission. It's saying you have permission now to make the salah, the adhan. But idhan is something that you're given in the Sufi tradition. Idhan is something you're given. It's kind of like license. In other words, you don't decide. You don't. Yeah, idhan. It's like license. And so it's like a permission in a sense, but also idhan is something that's passed. So they say, you know, if you go to a sheikh who is a teacher by durus, by speaking, that if you get idhan from that, if it's passed from you, originally from the Prophet, ﷺ, if it's passed from that sheikh to you and you're given idhan to speak, people will be there to listen. That's a sign of having the idhan. But it's kind of like not from the nafs or the ego, you make these decisions, but by someone else who says, okay, I give you the idhan. It's like different than a degree. Idhan is a little different than that. So it's the transmission, and it's the permission that comes from a series and lineage of teachers that's given. So we went to get the idhan from this man in Morocco who was a jinn chaser. We went to visit him, we told him we've come to see, will you give us the idhan, will you teach us about chasing and exercising jinn? And he said, Bismillah, Bismillah. So we had tea, we sat and we talked. We didn't talk about anything to do with jinn. We talked a little bit about, we talked something about the jinn and about some of the procedures, but not much. We had tea, we sat some more, we had some cakes, some other people came to visit. They left, we talked a little bit more about the jinn, not much. The day was finished. He said, Alhamdulillah, thank you for coming. You know, and was sending us on our way. And he's sending us on our way. And we say, well, what about the idhan? And he said, oh, the idhan, it was in the tea. So it was like an idhan, but he also meant that, you know, what he was also saying is that there's also a certain kind of transmission. And there's the belief that you can actually transmit information in a physical manner. This is something, this institution is not going to be big on this subject. Right? So, you know, sweeping the floor of your teacher, but being there present in his room, in his house, and serving him may be the way in which you get the seeds of barakah in yourself that will sprout into the knowledge that that same person has. And it will have a strange affinity in detail and in specific. Are you with me? You know, and then there's a belief that the milk of the mother to the child does the same thing. So yeah, being with him was a big part of the teaching. And I feel the same way about all the teachers I've had. Sitting with them was part of it. Touching them. They say the glance from the eye will transmit. So there was that, and there was a certain amount of detailed information, writing information that took place. So, you know, and when I was in Santa Barbara, I did learn physical diagnosis from my doctor friend that I worked with, who was an MD. And that was how they used a stethoscope, you know, how to recognize the diseased entities, what's the signs of pneumonia, and you know, just this sort of mainstream medicine. And that was by practice with clients, seeing them in person. So, you know, I've been fortunate in having one-on-one relationships with my teachers, I must say. And not everybody has the chance to do that. But, you know, and certainly the institutions are invaluable. But the institution in Islam, historically, the institution is person to person to person, traditionally. So, yeah, so that's one question. Yeah.